Thank you very much, Costa. It's an honor for me. I'm very happy to be here with you. And of course, I'm deeply honored to be able to speak to you today. What I'm going to talk about has nothing to do with my administrative roles through the years. It's my research. And in fact, what I'm going to try to do in this hour or so is to travel through 2 centuries, to travel through the 20th century and through the end of the 21st century, in seeing how the human mind was studied, how it was understood since the beginning of the 20th century, how it is understood today, and how it may be shaped in the years to come. So my presentation will actually focus on 3 main themes. First, I will give an outline of how the human mind is understood. I will talk a bit about the implications of this understanding for education. And then I will end up discussing the implications of the deep political and societal changes that take place in our time. Well, in the first half of the 20th century, the science of the human mind was established. What we understood in these first 5 decades of the 20th century is that the human mind is a machine of abstraction. It develops through the years, and in the end of the 20th century, cognitive psychology adopted what we would call the computer metaphor, that the human mind is an information processor, which is defined by the dimensions that define the computer. The model that dominates our days is what you see there about the structure of the human mind. We know that intelligence can be measured efficiently, and that measures of intelligence are very accurate in predictive school success and real-life outcomes, such as the professional income and so on, and that it is multidimensional, that it varies between individuals, and that it gets increasing. Actually, we have evidence, the so-called Flynn effect, that over the 20th century, the intelligence in the populations, the average intelligence in the population has increased by about 30 IQ points, and there is a projection that by the year 2100, it will increase another 10 units. Theories about cognitive development dominated through the years. Piaget's theory is one of them. I'm sure most of you have heard about sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete, and formal operational intelligence, which has been more precisely defined over the years by people like Robbie Case. And we now know that these changes that were described by Piaget are related to changes in the capacity of working memory, the speed of information processing. And we agree, actually, that there are basically 4 cycles of development, which each one of them is a different worldview, defining how kids understand the world. And that these changes relate to education. I will show later that different kinds of processes relate to learning at school at different ages. Definitely, these changes are related to the deep social, economic, and technological changes that have occurred, such as the Industrial Revolution, the expansion of compulsory education, expansion of university education, social media and the technologies of information technologies of the 21st century, and now artificial intelligence. What we know now already is that all processes, all cognitive processes improve by training. No far transfer occurs actually. We haven't learned how to change the human mind, how to accelerate cognitive development. But there is something that we know, that there are some processes that, such as relational integration processes, that if we are able to change them, this does generalize to other processes. So all over the 20th century, different theories prevailed in education, such as learning theory in the early 20th century, Piaget's theory in the middle 20th century, Brunner's ideas, later, especially in some countries, Vygotsky's ideas. More modern theories such as cognitive theory about complexity of information, Gartner's theory about the diversity of intelligence, metacognition in the recent years, and self-regulated learning. But from a given point of view, there has been a failure through the 20th century. Psychometric theory, intelligence theories describe why people differ in learning, but it didn't teach us how to change intelligence, how to accelerate cognitive development through the years. Misconceptions still persist, despite what we've learned about the architecture of the human minds. So the 20th century paradox is that although we have 30 points of increase of intelligence through the 20th century, inequality persists. Individual differences still remain. Everybody becomes more efficient cognitively, but individual differences persist because the environment becomes more complex. Changes occur because of massification of primary and secondary education. This has happened today with university education. In this country, more than 70% of people get a university degree, but it doesn't this mean much about their income and their work prospects. Because still, cognitive individual differences are projected to where people study. We have 12 universities in Cyprus. The most bright students compete to get here in this university, the others go to the other places. In the States, they have 3,000 or 4,000 universities. People compete for Harvard or Stanford or Berkeley. There are many other universities, but those who get a good job and have a good payment are those who come from elite universities in every country, actually, one way or another. So the question is, how can we break this paradox and bring equality in opportunities and prospects for the individual in a democratic society? Maybe the answer is in the technologies that have appeared, but I will get to this a bit later on. Other sciences have progressed dramatically because they have made big discoveries about the basic organization of their world. Physics understood the structure of the atom, the structure of material world, and they have nuclear power for good or for bad. In biology, they discovered the structure of the DNA, and now they have the big discoveries that we have in medication, genetic engineering, in plants, animals, probably humans later. Still, we do not have this knowledge about the basic unit of the human brain and the human mind, and this explains why are rather slow in our development. You know, these are levels in the organization of the brain, but still, we do not know how the brain produces thought. We do not agree what is the basic unit in the brain, protein, neuron, network hierarchy, and we do not agree what is the basic unit in the mind. Is perception, is relation, is mental operation, is concept, we don't know. So an integrated theory is needed. This is what is actually what I'm working on in the last 40 years. A theory that would be able to describe the central core process of the human mind, domain-specific processes, how consciousness and awareness emerges, how learning happens, conceptual and knowledge structures in culture and history, conceptual and knowledge structures, that's the second, and how thought is organized, and what is the role of the teachers for self-regulation and learning. And still, we have to explain why atypical development occurs in about 5 to 10% of the individuals in every field. So actually, I'm outlining my theory of the human mind. The basic idea is that there are specific domains which are differentiated from each other based on the basic structure of relations, such as causal relations, magnitudes, categorical relations, and so on, which are processed by a central processor, which is basically relational integration processes, assisted by some enablers, such as attention, control, and representational capacity, and building up through reasoning processes directed by self-awareness, or what I call cognizance processes. All these allow episodic integration of information, executive control, conceptual change, formalization, and thus development, in problem solving and in self-awareness. There is a broad correspondence between this model and the organization of the human brain. I will skip that actually. To go to the education part of my presentation, but keep this in mind. In development, languages of thought emerge which enable to build increasingly complex units of understanding, such as organizing sentences in language, organizing numbers into structures, and in allowing basic logical schemes to operate. They get increasing from preschool to primary school to secondary school. Despite this common cause, development in the human, in the child, may be extremely variable. So despite the fact that there are central processes, specificities in each domain, such as, for example, difficulties in perception of sound, perception of vision, inattention, and so on, can cause important deviations between the various domains, so that, for example, you can have people with difficulties in language and reading, difficulties in concentrating, causing attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyscalculia, and so on. What is important from the point of view of education is to specify what are the basic cognitive priorities in different age phases, age periods, and it is to these priorities that education must be directed. For example, in infancy, perceptual appearances and handling objects is important. In preschool, the attentional value of stimuli and representational functions are important. Later in primary school are inferential processes underlying logical reasoning, and later in adolescence is logical cohesion, semantic cohesion, and so on. In pictures, so what are our predictions about school success? We showed in a couple of papers published in the last 5 years or so that the predictors of academic achievement in each phase are the developmental priorities of this phase. Executive processes and representational awareness in preschool. Inductive reasoning, inferential awareness, manipulation of cognitive processes in primary school. Deductive reasoning, self-representation and self-evaluation, and conscientiousness in secondary school. Here is actually how general cognitive ability, reasoning, executive function, awareness, cognizance, and this personality factor conscientiousness relate with performance at school, in preschool, primary, and secondary school. You can see that general processes, the importance of general processes in predicting school learning decreases with age, but reasoning increases. Executive function is extremely important in preschool, not that in primary school, and zero effect in secondary school. The same is true for awareness. Conscientiousness as a personality characteristic of self-organization appears only in adolescence. So what are the educational implications? In preschool, we should direct the system to take control of executive processes such as attention control and organizing behavior according to mental goals. And of course, this can be specified in different domains such as language, number, and so on. In primary school, the focus must be on building inferential awareness and building inferential flexibility. Training logic, actually. And this inserted into different domains such as, again, science, mathematics, language, and so on. In adolescence, in secondary school, redefining representations in abstract terms must be a big priority. I already mentioned learning difficulties, actually. Each of these dimensions is a dimension of a neurodevelopmental disorder. Here, for example, you can see that if there are hearing problems or visual perception problems, you may end up in dyslexia. If you have attention problems, you may end up in attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. If you have self-representation, self-awareness problems, beyond a certain limit, you may end up in autism, and so on. So let's look at this. This is learning nowadays. Actually, the kids here are my grandchildren. You think they are each one isolated in his or her own world, but that's not the case. They have a phone and they play together. So in fact, they are interacting through their phones, playing the same game. So this is the world that is coming. Even their grandmother plays with them. So, is education left behind? Yes and no. Education struggles to keep up with the rapid pace of technological change. They try to adapt curricula, but they are quite behind, although, especially in the last couple of years, because of the COVID pandemic, some new developments did take place, such as, for example, online learning platforms, MOOCs, blended learning environments, and so on. But still, we need to find the balance between these technologies and maintaining and educational values such as critical thinking, ethical reasoning, and social learning. Is education of the teachers up to date? I'm quite aware there are colleagues here from the Department of Education here at the University of Cyprus. No, I think that we are in a transition phase, such that actually the education of teachers may be stuck 30 years behind. They learn the wrong theories, and they get the wrong skills for teaching and evaluation. Because we have to give to our teachers the ability to teach digital citizenship. I'm sure that most of my grandkids around the age of 7 to 10 are more proficient than their teachers in using this technology. But this has to go to school. And it has to go to school and let the kids navigate social media responsibly and ethically, understanding privacy issues, the impact of digital footprints, their identity, and so on. It doesn't happen. And, I spent about 3.5 years going to once a month, at least, to Brussels for the Council of Ministers of Education of the European Union. Have they ever talked about these issues? Never, never. They never discussed anything related to the changes that are taking place in the world. I understand that education is in the jurisdiction of the states, on the one hand, but on the other hand, direction from a central agency such as the Council of Ministers of Education would have to be obvious. It doesn't take place. So, preparing for this call, for this lecture, I used artificial intelligence to see if I can develop curricula for several subjects. One of them was biology. So I got into interaction with GPT-4, and I asked the system to present to me a full course for a full curriculum for teaching the concepts you see on the transparency to preschool, primary school, and secondary school. I just summarize here. I got about 50 pages for each curriculum. All of the details. That's the details there. But there was a principle there. Actually, let me tell you this. When I was the Minister of Education here, we tried to change the curriculum all over, from preschool to upper high school, over all of the subjects. We set up about 22 committees involving more than 200 people coming from Cyprus, Greece, and many other countries. They presented us a curriculum. It's all outdated. If we had the technology that we have today, we could get the curriculum through the computer and just have only one or two persons for each subject. Is this okay? It is for me anyway. I was watching a discussion on the BBC this morning, actually, before coming here. And it was a professor of machine learning from Cambridge saying that, you know, the weaker a country is, the best this technology is for this country because it can get the expertise that up to now it was available only in the most rich and most advanced societies. I asked actually the system to propose a curriculum for teaching democracy in preschool, primary school, and secondary school. Again, it was extremely sophisticated. I suggested that politicians may lie. And it came with a large set of answers on how we can teach kids to overcome lying by politicians. Again, organized according to demands for preschool, primary, and high school. I asked the system, and in fact, I asked a curriculum for physics to teach the atom, even for teaching the construct of intelligence. I have about 200 pages. And I asked the system to tell me what was his, her, or its influence. And he suggested that I did draw on Piaget's theory, Vygotsky's theory, Brunner's theory, Gardner's theory, and the neo-Piagetian theories of cognitive development. It even made a reference to my work. And then I asked to give me the general principles that were used by it to propose all of this curricula. That's what I got. Primary school focuses on concrete, hands-on learning that ties new concepts to tangible familiar experiences. Abstract ideas are minimized and so on. In secondary school, it introduces abstract thinking, encouraging students to start connecting concepts and so on. In upper high school, emphasizing abstract reasoning, critical analysis, and so on. Very close to what I would expect, actually, based on what we know today about the human mind. So the general principles: incremental complexity, domain-specific and general cognitive abilities, processing capacity, scaffolding, and independence. So what kind of changes are coming? Many. Does any one of you use a pen to write? I don't. I may have one, but I don't use it. I just type on my iPhone. How much time do I have, Costa? Yeah, we have here. Yeah, on the iPhone or on the laptop or on my desktop. So I predict that handwriting sooner or later will disappear as a skill. We may dictate a talk, and then these may be transcribed into writing. Imagined words exist side by side with reality. I talk with the kids at home. Their age goes from 6 to 15. It's inconceivable that when I was a first or second year secondary school student, I would be able to talk about the theory of evolution. Or I would be able to talk about what the problem with Stalin was in the Soviet Union. Or what the problem with, name it, is in Roman history. Kids live these worlds, and they have access to them. So awareness of the mental world is accelerated. Probably the next Flynn effect comes from here. So let's see what a smart classroom is going to be. Interactive whiteboards and digital displays that would allow teachers to present content and students to interact with teaching online. Sensor-based technology that monitors students' activity and provide real-time feedback to teachers and the student to identify needs and adjust teaching. Continuous assessments of students in school and in their everyday life, drawing directly on psychological and pedagogical criteria such as those that I mentioned in passing here. Video conferencing and all sorts of tools that would enable distance learning, not the kind of distance learning that we used during the pandemic. I have personal experience. The kids were using my computer to connect with their classroom during the pandemic. It was very primitive, actually. It was very primitive because there was a teacher connected to 26 students in their homes. Only 2 or 3 students were active, and the others were just, I don't know what they were doing. We know that as a result of the pandemic, despite this attempt to use technology, students fell behind by a couple of years. And we haven't mapped this yet. So students can have access to online resources and participate in virtual learning activities. So the major challenge for education is to build the meta-knowing, meta-evaluating, and meta-deciding mind. That's the major education challenge. So this word gives much more opportunity for developing critical thinking because there's the source for criticality is not just between a child and his memory or his perceptions, or the child and his or her teachers, but it may be online all the time. And we can, critical thinking differs by age, differs by developmental phase. So we have to have a program for how we can make a preschool kid critical, how we can make a primary school kid critical, or a secondary school kid critical. So can natural and artificial intelligence converge? Or how can they actually converge? You see there that what unites them is the model of the mind that I presented before. So to simulate to develop what is the holy grail of nowadays artificial intelligence, the so-called artificial general intelligence, we have to train them not just on books published, as it is the case with the current systems of artificial intelligence, such as the so-called large language models, such as the GPT-4, but we have to train the system to develop as the kids develop, to control interactions with objects and persons, build representational awareness and attention control, acquire inferential awareness and inferential control, and build reasoning habits for truth control and self-mapping. So, actually, the target of the artificial intelligence researcher must be the development of natural human intelligence, following the steps that we know that lead to the intelligence, the natural intelligence of the adult. So I think it's coming. I don't want to get into technical details, but you can access publications or my talk here. Of course, I understand that this creates a lot of practical and moral issues, such as who can use these agents, how can these agents be integrated in education, how can they be integrated in political decision-making? Can the artificial systems, choose their